Thursday evening, we are all settled in Buffalo, our hotel just near the start and finish line for the race. We have 3 days until the race, so our goal leading into this weekend and specifically into race day on Sunday is to get as settled as possible and to make this the most comfortable environment as possible so that we are ready to go on Sunday. We wanted to set up our hotel room and our environment to fit what we're used to and what we enjoy, and that's what I'm going to walk you through really quickly. We did our grocery store shopping and got all of that done. We have a lot of carb-focused food as we have the carb load and the first day of our 3-day carb load today. I'll go into more detail about specific foods that I choose for the carb load and what I'm looking for out of the carb load later on in the video. Down here, we have a pretty deep supplement stack. Certainly not all necessary, but things that I'm used to taking every single day. So I wanted to have the things that I'm used to taking, specifically a protein supplement to make sure that we're hitting our protein needs. We have our greens and reds, which I take every morning. And then the biggest thing perhaps that I'll be taking over the next few days, beyond just the carbohydrates and getting those in, is our electrolytes, as well as a carb source, carb powder, that will also be used around the race in race day, that also has a full electrolyte profile. The main takeaway here is we wanted to set ourselves up for success by replicating the environment that we are most used to on a daily basis. I feel like we've done a good job of that. Now it's just about settling in. So beyond nutrition, other ways that we can set ourselves up for success within our environment, the things that we do every day outside of running, which I try to really focus, especially in the past week and a half of taper, really focusing in on things that I enjoy outside of running. So for example, I brought 2 books that I'm currently reading. To Sell is Human by Daniel H. Pink, is Endure by Cameron Haynes. Another thing that I have here is my daily journal, and this can kind of be a place that I come with any thoughts that I have over the next few days. Just putting those thoughts down, if nothing else, it does help us in the moment, but also it's a fun thing to look back on after the race, weeks down the road, maybe even pick it up years down the road and see how you were feeling leading into that big race or big event that you've been preparing for. And I want to point out Abby's book as well, because I do find this cool. We were reading together on the plane. As she was reading, I was reading over her shoulder. I don't know if that's rude. But she's reading a book called How She Did It, and it's a collection of writings from female runners currently in the sport right now. Great perspectives from really amazing athletes, so it's really inspiring. So perhaps, I got so dizzy doing that. Perhaps the most important thing that I can do over the next few days is sleep. We woke up at 3:30 in the morning today because we had a 6 a.m. flight. A lot of people have trouble sleeping the night before the race, so the benefit of getting to the location early is that you can get adjusted to the location, but also you can get adjusted to your sleeping pattern, and now we can sleep in a little bit tomorrow, a little bit perhaps the next day, and then we're going to be up nice and early on race day as well. But we'll be ready to perform if we can get the sleep leading into race day. Alright, it is Friday evening. I wanted to go over the idea of carb loading. why we do it, what it is, and how to most effectively carb load for an endurance event. Because as an athlete going into an endurance event, we want to have stored energy in the form of glycogen. We will be able to use that stored glycogen in our performance. So that is why we do it. It gives us a better opportunity to have an increase in athletic performance because of that stored energy. What is a carb load? Typically a carb load is going to be anywhere from 3.5 to 5.5 grams of carbs, dependent or based off of your body weight. I'm looking to fall somewhere in the middle of that, honestly, based off those calculations, probably on the lower end of that, somewhere between 650 and 700 grams of carbs yesterday, which was 3 days out from the marathon, today, and then tomorrow, the 3 days preceding the endurance event that we're carb loading for. Now, a trick or just tips for carb loading. Number one, we want to eat easily digestible foods. We don't want to be eating too much of something that's not going to digest easily. You also may want to extend your eating window. Eat for a longer amount of time per day. So if you typically eat from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., a 12-hour window, you may want to extend that a little bit. Maybe you eat a later meal, or you even start eating a little bit earlier. Another tip that's extremely helpful and can also be advantageous for storing electrolytes would be to consume liquid calories. So if you consume a carbohydrate mix in a powder form, a lot of those are going to have a complete selection of electrolytes as well. So that'll help you to store your electrolytes as well as to continue storing that glycogen in the form of carbohydrate. And then the final tip and another way to get the most out of your carb load is to lower your fat intake. When we're doing a carb load, we don't want to raise our calories too much. They may go up a little bit naturally, but we don't want our caloric intake on a daily basis to go way up. Rather, we want to lower the amount of fat that we're eating each day and replace the calories that we would typically get from fat, or maybe even some of the calories that we typically get from protein, and just replace that with carbohydrates. One day out from the Buffalo Marathon and a big goal to work towards tomorrow, aiming for a sub-3 marathon. That was not the plan coming into this prep. The plan was to go as low in the 3.0 as possible, somewhere around 3:02. But it's been a good training cycle, and the mindset is, if not now, then when? We've already done the expo, and the mindset is completely shifted. We've been here for 2 days already. By race day, we would have been in Buffalo for 3 days. That's a long time. So we've kept it pretty light the first 2 days, but now the mindset is completely shifted. It's game time, it's time to show up, and we're ready to work. Let's go. We have finally arrived to the evening before the marathon. It is Saturday evening, and I had a few really good questions come in that I want to kind of frame the conversation around as we head into race day tomorrow. The first question was this: what defines my success tomorrow? And I loved that question because it wasn't directly asking what my time goal is. It was asking how I'm going to define success. So I reflected on that and I thought about these 3 points. Number one, consistency. I want to be able to hit consistent splits throughout the race, because when we're consistent in a distance or endurance event, it shows that we were able to push and endure through the hard moments. So I want to be able to be consistent across the board. Number 2, pushing and holding pace when it gets hard. And a concept that I really love to think about with marathoning is running a beautiful race. There are a lot of comparisons made between running marathons and life. And I believe that that is one way that we can look at both endurance events and life in the same light. And it is that we have the opportunity to run a beautiful race. But if we're going to do that, we have to be able to endure when things get hard. And that is what I want to put on display tomorrow. The third thing that I would say is overcoming all that the race has to offer. Throughout 26.2 miles, there's going to be some challenges. There's potentially going to have to be some audibles that have to be made. And I want to be able to make the right decisions throughout the race. Now, getting into the actual goal. The A goal for tomorrow is to run a sub 3-hour marathon. Because I believe that if not now, then when? That is the mindset that I have around this goal. I'm in a position where I feel if I run a strong race and the conditions are in my favor and we have a good day, I can hit this goal. A 6:50 minute per mile average pace for the marathon. So how are we going to achieve that? The plan right now is to go out for the first half marathon, so 13.1 miles, at around a 6:55 minute per mile pace. But this is where we are going to look to close the gap and hopefully finish strong enough to achieve this goal. We're going to work down to the goal pace of about 6:50 throughout miles 13 to 18, and then we're going to close the rest of the race 18 to 26 sub 6:50 and hopefully cross the finish line in under 3 hours. The third and final question that I'll end on is, how do you overcome failure? My response to that is that first you have to define failure. I've always encouraged people to define what they believe success to be. I think it's really dangerous when we follow blanketed statements for words like failure or success because they're extremely open-ended. So we need to understand, what do we view as an actual failure and what do we deem as success? When we can define that, we can then recognize when it's occurring in our lives. First and foremost, you have to continue forward with your small daily actions. We can continue forward. If my goal is to run a sub 3-hour marathon tomorrow, but I don't, that doesn't mean that I completely change up my approach to running. There are a lot of things that are in place right now that are working, but that leads us into the next point of how we overcome or approach instances of failure, is that we look for things that can change. We look for learning opportunities, because when we can learn something, even if it's something so small, and we make that small change from that moment in time, then we can overcome that failure and ultimately turn it into an achievement or whatever we deem to be success. Race days tomorrow. Been training for this race for the past 14 to 16 weeks. And in that time, a lot has changed. We've moved from Colorado back to our home in Kentucky. Life's been uncomfortable in a lot of ways, and running has been the one steady thing that I could rely on every single day. My goal tomorrow is to put on display just how important it is to have that thing in your life, that thing that pushes you, that thing that makes you better, because ultimately you will be stronger for your commitment to it. Looking forward to putting it all out there tomorrow and showing you what I'm made of. We did it. Sub 3 marathon. I believe it was somewhere in the low 258s. Honestly, a perfect day. It felt really smooth and it didn't really start to hurt until about mile 22. So honestly, a dream of a day for so many reasons that I'll post about on social media and tell stories about probably for a while to come. But you know, to me, this is just what happens when you see something for so long and are willing to put in the work day after day and make it come a reality. It is possible. It is something that we can all achieve, and it's an amazing feeling when you do, so I encourage you to identify that vision and work towards it. Thank you for watching. Continue to follow along because there's more to come.
Hell yeah.
Alright, so we're going to end this video on a light note. For 12 out of 16 weeks of this marathon prep, I've had a dead toenail on the big toe of my left foot. It made it. It made it through marathon prep. We're going to see if it made it through the marathon. I think it did. He's a tough man, and I think he made it through. Now, there's going to be probably some other imperfections here. But
some warning, if you don't like to look at man feet, Austin does not have the prettiest feet.
Perfect.
Oh my god. All right,
we are, so that's a dead toenail. He hung on. He's coming along. Just like the race. We're all good. Thanks for watching.